Testing, testing. Thumbs up if you can hear me online. Yeah, thank you, Phil. All right. Let me know if you can see my screen with another thumbs up, please, if you can. All right. Sweet. We're off to a good start. All right. Welcome to the November 15th meeting. Being distracted. Forest Park Southeast Neighborhood Association meeting. Ground rules, as always, please enter your questions in the chat if you're attending via Zoom. If you're in person, please raise your hand to speak so we can provide you the mic. Close the door. So please, no interruptions and behave with common courtesy. On our agenda today, we will start with the treasurer's report, talk quickly about some events that are coming up or that have happened. We'll go through a vote for the 2023 board. If Officer Walker is in attendance, we'll have the crime and safety report. And then go through a high-level overview of the Manchester project at 4534 through 4556 Manchester. Unfortunately, Austin was not unable to make the meeting tonight. He wasn't aware of this meeting in the whole process of engaging with the community until he had booked a flight somewhere. So what we will do instead is he has provided some of his presentation materials. We'll go through a high-level overview of what he's planning to build, and then play the preservation board meeting, because that is why he is here tonight. And I think they did a very nice job of discussing what that project entails. But first, we will jump into the treasurer's report, and I'll hand it off to Cami.
Hello, this is Cami Lewis Holiday. Treasurer's report, we had $14.99 for our usual monthly Zoom, and we also, so that brings us to $2,102.83. We got a donation. What's
That was from
the previous month?
Yeah, we didn't have it
All right.
logged.
And yeah, from the previous month of September, we had we spent $1,463.71 for food and ice for neighborhood night out. But we also got a generous $1,400 donation from WashU Medical Center. So thank you, they are present tonight. And so that brings us to $2,102.83 currently, right? And
I don't know.
Membership is pay what you can. Members get voting privileges, like at the elections that we're having later tonight. You can pay via Cash App or with cash or check. And to get information on that, send an email to forestparksoutheast@gmail.com.
You want to talk about events? Go for it.
Sure. Some events that have happened and will happen. Last Saturday, we planted 6 trees at Shoto Park, 3 hackberries and 3 black maples. It was very cold, but we dug some clay soil and got those trees planted and watered, and hopefully they will grow tall. They're canopy trees, so will provide a lot of shade in a couple decades. And coming up on December 3rd at 10 a.m., we will be planting daffodil bulbs provided by Brightside STL at Shoto Park, and hopefully Adams Elementary School, which is tentative pending approval from the principal. But so for Shoto Park, we will definitely meet at Shoto Ave and Newstead, and then we'll let you know about the Adams Elementary School. Maybe we'll have them going at the same time, but there'll be information, like confirmation later, but dress in warm layers and bring shovels. It should be fun. We might have warm snacks and drinks.
Awesome, thank you. Next, we will jump into board positions for 2023. Quick rundown of the nominees and how you can vote. For president, we have myself. For vice president, we have Aaron with 2 A's, not 1. We have Cami for treasurer. For secretary, and standing at the door right now is Mark Mangapora. And for member at large, we have Sarah Kogan. Elections are today. You must be a dues paying member to vote, and membership is pay what you can. If you have not paid your dues but would like to, we can accept them up until the vote. You can pay through Cash App, or you can pay in person by check or mail, or by check or cash, and we can get that sorted out. For those attending online, we will head out into a breakout room in which I will send you a link to a Google forum in which you can fill out your ballot there. In person, we have the old paper and pen trick. We can pass out pens and paper for you to write down your nominations. Again, the nominations are here on the board. I will right now put those of you who are dues paying members into a breakout room. Or if you're unable to vote online using the form, just drop a chat and we can take your nominations to the chat as well. So let me form this breakout room really quick. Hybrid's always difficult, you know? All right, thank you. One sec more. Breakout room. Yes, yep. Sign manually. All right. Got do. 1 minute, 1 second. Sorry. Okay, we'll add you. All right, I have asked for those who are dues paying members to join a separate room. Hopefully, can I join that room? Man, this is not easy. Trying, guys, I'm trying. How can I join this room? Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, perfect. All right. I'm going to drop the link in the chat. Let me know if you guys can get that. I'll vote there too. Yeah, it's just easier that way. What's that?
I said, I think you have the votes.
I'm not checking me, I'm checking everybody. All right, we have 3 responses so far. Waiting for the other ones to trickle in. Check the Zoom. Give it about another minute.
And I can't remember my password.
Uh-oh.
Is there something else I can do to vote? Phil Higney.
Yes,
Who wants to give me a call? Can you take this vote back?
you wanna call? Do you have Michael's phone number? You can call him and he can take your vote via phone. Or you can probably just drop it in a direct message to myself or
Yeah, just do it. That works.
I think he's looking up your phone number.
I don't know if it does it.
I didn't know you needed a password.
I don't think I have Michael's phone number. So if I go to the chat, you think I can?
You can also write in the names from the nominations into the chat and direct message me and we can tally those up.
Okay, I'll try that.
All right. One more minute. I haven't seen it come through yet. It's a tough one. Let me know when you've submitted it. Oh,
Okay, it's now I've got you guys in a column on the right side of my screen,
Mhm.
but I don't have the image
Got
for
one
the
though?
meeting. Yeah,
well, how about you give Michael a phone call? Does that work?
can you tell me his phone number?
I can. Let me know when you're ready.
Ready,
618.
618.
What are the rest?
Oh, wait, 210. Thought you knew it.
I don't know.
10
210
210
0893.
0893.
0893. I'll give Michael a call.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right, let me check. All right, we got 3 responses from there. Oh, does Mark need one?
Great point. This is Michael.
Hi, Michael. Phil Higney.
Oh, there we go.
Good. How are you?
I put him on mute. Hybrid's hard.
Yeah.
Oh, hey. Cast your ballot.
Who are the nominations?
Myself, Dan Doling for president. Aaron Fish for vice president. For treasurer, we have Cami Lewis. For secretary, we have somebody named Mark Mangapora. And then member at large is Sarah Kogan. Oh.
1 second. while I draw it
Yep.
out.
All right, I will. Put you on mute. I will. There we go. All right, I am going to end the breakout room and we will return to the normal room and share results. Here we go. Give it a second. All right. All right, looks like everyone's back in the room. All right. For here are the results. If everyone wants to see the results. For president, we have Dan. For vice president, we have Aaron. Cami Lewis as treasurer, Mark as secretary, and Sarah as member at large. Welcome to the 2023 board, y'all. All right. Jumping into crime and safety, I don't see Officer Walker here at the moment. So we can add her to the end if she appears, and jump into, oh, someone else joined. Jump into the project, 4534 Manchester to 4556 Manchester. Tonight, our goal is to share an overview of the project based off of what Austin had shared with us prior to the meeting, collect questions for the Forest Park Southeast Development Review Committee to take and to consider in their meeting next Tuesday on November 22nd. It is not Remedy Church. I need to fix that. And we encourage you to attend that meeting as well. there's a public session there where you can talk about your opinions on the project, and the development committee will consider those into the overall recommendation that they will make to the alderperson. A quick overview of the project. Austin presented his project to the Preservation Board last month, in which the Preservation Board recommended or delayed any review until they engaged with the community before going back in 2 months. What Austin presented was a 4-story mixed-use retail residential building with first floor retail, 69 units, 21 studio, 48 one-bed, 54 parking spaces. No tax incentives were sought, and he applied for an $11.7 million, $300,000 zoning only building permit for the building and the parking lot on Swan. I'm just gonna whip through these renderings and site plans really quickly, and then I think what's most appropriate would just be to share the recording of the Preservation Board meeting in which they discussed the project and went through the process of getting to where we are today. For more details on the matter, you can attend the Development Review Committee, in which they will be discussing the project. So the proposed 4-story building here on Manchester and parking lot behind it, and the Swan parking lot as well. Here you have elevation plans and site plans. There's that. Again, I'm not one to speak to it, so I'm not going to. You have the 1 studio, 1 bedroom, and 1 bedroom L bedrooms here with the courtyard in the middle. Sure. Do you want the mic? Okay.
This is Sarah. I know there's no one here to answer the question, but are they gonna, there's a vacant lot next door to this that they don't own, but it looks like they're gonna have a access onto it. Is that just an extra parking spot, or is that access onto the neighboring property?
Write that down. Give it to the development. Okay. Bedroom layouts from 650 square feet to 504. You have your east elevations, your west elevations, your north elevations facing Manchester at the bottom there. Your south elevation near Swan. And then the rendering itself. Shouldn't. Phil, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. Tell him to do what?
Dan, do you know if the property on Swan that would be parking area has a building on it now, or is that a vacant lot? If you know.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes, the part of this project that shows it's on the north side of Swan, is that currently a building or is that a vacant lot? If you know. That section where it says parking from Swan to the alley.
Again.
Currently, it's a vacant lot.
Okay, thanks.
Tell Ken And here are the building materials to be used. You have brick veneer, window and metal panel color, fiber cement board, and these different colors. Again, we can run through the preservation board meeting. They speak much better to it than I can. Start at 125.53. 1 second.
Yeah, board members. Okay,
Can you guys hear the presentation?
next,
Yep,
the next agenda item is a proposal for the demolition of 6 buildings at 4534, 4538, 4540, 4544, 4552, and 4556 Manchester. Here we go. Many of you are familiar with the site. It's on a very prominent location along Manchester on the eastern end, close to Kings Highway. This is the precise location.
Sorry, I'm trying to delete that. Damn it, Dan.
They're in a preservation review district. Descriptions of the houses are in the agenda, so I won't go into too much detail, but suffice it to say that these are buildings with architectural detail and with architectural significance. However, they have suffered neglect, and as you can see, especially from the rear, they are not in great condition. In terms of history, in 2021, the applicant filed for a preliminary review to demolish the buildings. That application did not include plans for subsequent new construction, so our office denied the application, and the applicant chose not to appeal to the preservation board. Since then, the applicant has worked with architects and with our office, and the current proposal includes plans for the construction of a four-story mixed-use building here we go. Four-story mixed-use building with 71 residential units, 2 to 4 retail spaces, and 50 parking spaces. And I'll just give you the brief overview of the proposal. This is looking south from Manchester. Here are some of the elevations. Rear elevation. This is the site plan. So here's the building in question. It would cover this interior parking, and then again, there's additional parking over here. I will note that upon our suggestion, the architects worked to move the line of the parking wall to be in line with the building's existing residences that are along Swan. So you can get an idea of the overall layout, the recessed portion of the second floor with an amenity space. We have information on materials, fiber cement board, brick veneer. Here's another view from Swan. Here's an evening view. And we'll get to some context in a moment. So there isn't a redevelopment plan in this location, so that was not applicable. Hold on just one moment. Architectural quality, all 6 buildings are considered merit structures under the ordinance. In scale and architectural detailing and dates of construction, the buildings are similar to other residential buildings within the National Register District and are sited adjacent to its western boundary. As far as the condition of the buildings, we haven't gotten any structural report on the building's conditions. We will note that at 4540, 4544, and 4546, portions of the rear walls have failed. 4556 has also had a small loss of brick face at the eastern parapet. Masonry failures are due to lack of maintenance, do not appear to be severe enough to compromise the structural integrity of the building, so we consider them sound under Ordinance 64689. In terms of neighborhood effect and reuse potential, the area is located site is located in an area with a strong real estate market, and we have not gotten information to counter the viability of the buildings for reuse. We also have not gotten evidence of economic hardship. As far as the integrity of this existing block face, while there have been 2 or 3 previous losses on this block, the existing buildings continue the street wall and are consistent in scale with the adjacent buildings. As noted, the buildings are sited at the major western entrance to the Grove and the Forest Park southeastern neighborhood. The new construction. Proposed subsequent construction would equal or exceed the contribution of the structures. We believe it complies. The proposal is to construct a 4-story 71-unit apartment building with interior and surface parking, continuing the pattern recently begun in the Grove of large multi-story apartment buildings along Manchester, and be similar in scale, siding, and exterior materials. However, the architects have worked with the cultural resources staff to refine the original submission and avoid conditions that appear less than satisfactory in some of these earlier buildings. Namely, that they have provided a cohesive exterior design, a unified color palette, a pedestrian scaled first floor, and a clearly defined building entry. Our staff report goes into more details about the series of glazed storefronts, parking, and other details. Proposed construction would be architecturally compatible with existing block face. That block, the 4500 block, comprises a mix of small scale residential, commercial, and warehouse buildings. We note that it is less intact than many blocks in Forest Park Southeast and has not yet been included in the boundaries of the National Register District. There has been substantial demolition on the north side, and with the exception of 3 historic buildings at the northwest corner of Manchester and Taylor within the district, there's really not much left on this block. And I'll show you some of the context here. So this is the opposite side of Manchester from the proposed site. This is just a little bit east on Manchester, some of the remaining original buildings on the site. This is looking west down Manchester. Across the street, here are some remaining buildings, historic buildings. On the other side of Manchester, we have a non-original building. And on the same side of Manchester, further east, we have some warehouse buildings, and there is also an automobile service station. Further down on Manchester, there's some additional large-scale apartment buildings. So the construction would commence within 12 months, and brings us to our conclusions that these buildings are located in a preservation review district. They are considered merit. They are sound under the definition. Demolition would result in the loss of most of the historic fabric on the remaining block. And the proposed construction would be a 4-story apartment building with the interior parking, while incompatible in scale, massing, and materials with the current buildings on the block, would continue the pattern of large-scale residential infill along Manchester Avenue. The architects have worked with the Cultural Resources Office to produce a cohesive and unified design that employs various elements to both reduce the perceived scale of the building and render it more compatible with the historic fabric of the neighborhood. So based on that, we recommend that the board grant preliminary approval of the demolition and new construction with stipulation that final drawings, exterior materials, and colors be reviewed and approved by the Cultural Resources Office.
Questions for Meg?
I have one. Who is Groveland LLC?
I believe the principal of that company is here on the here in the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? Hearing none. Let's hear from the applicant.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, who are you?
Hi, Austin Barzanti. I'm with Grove Properties. Thank you, commissioners, for hearing our project today, and thank you, Meg, for that detailed synopsis. My company, we've developed, renovated and developed over 50 buildings in the Grove in the last 15 years, many of them utilizing historic tax credits. And as much as I do not like to tear down buildings, in fact, I've never torn one down before in my life. Unfortunately, restoring these buildings is economically unfeasible. If these buildings were on a residential street within the historic district, I could make them work. But unfortunately, because they are on Manchester, in a commercial district, the economics just don't make sense. Also, my consultants tell me that the likelihood of getting these nominated to the register is slim to none as well. I'm looking forward to seeing this project happen. It's going to add much needed density to this block of Manchester on the west. It's going to help activate the western side of the Grove. I'm going to let my architects speak more about the design, but also I would like to include that I feel that I do have neighborhood support for this project. It's called the form-based code. The form-based code, as a resident and business owner, I sat in meetings with the neighborhood for 2 years to get the form-based code developed. This project meets the form-based code 100%. I'm also not asking for any subsidies or variances on the project. I'd be happy to answer more questions after my architects present.
Okay. I'm Jeff McGee at Design Alliance Architects. Meg, could you go to one of the renderings, please? Thank you. Thank you for presenting our project today. We've been working with Cultural Resources and St. Louis City Zoning Department to get this building to a point where they are also comfortable with the design. We've put a lot of thought into this and gone back and forth with them so that we aren't just trying to present something that no one's seen before, but it's been worked through a couple times. We've seen a couple iterations of this. We have here a podium building along Manchester that faces the main street that also has a amenity deck that also communicates directly with the life of the street as well. That connection is very, very intentional to welcome people into the Grove and to be able to see new life in something that's vibrant in this neighborhood. I know that I myself used to live in this neighborhood and would love to see this corner developed and see something happening there that also falls in line with the nature of Manchester. Right now, what's there does not fit with the form-based code, like Austin mentioned. We looked into it and it's just economically, you know, if it doesn't work, you know, we tried our best, but we would like to present a building that has the commercial space on the bottom for walkability of the neighborhood, use of coordinating cool color temperatures, exterior finished materials that draw down into the podium building to connect the different levels of the building so it doesn't just look like two buildings stacked on top of each other, which was a comment that we worked through with the Cultural Resources Department. We have brick as well as fiber cement or Nichiha and metal, sheet metal along the face that integrates well with the storefront. We also incorporated a cap, a parapet cap up at the top to delineate the top of the building, which we would like to, we don't have this in the rendering, but would like to have some intricate lighting in there as well to really highlight this at night to make it look really, really sharp, since there's a lot of nightlife in the neighborhood. So we also have a canopy that you can see up there that integrates with the pergola up above at the amenity deck. There's also on-site parking that is tucked underneath the backside of the building. We are also in the process of starting to nose into the zoning only permit with the zoning department as well.
Questions for the architect? Okay. Meg, is somebody here to speak?
Yes, at this point, we only have one person set up to speak, and that is Cammie Lewis.
And Alderwoman Peel.
I believe Alderman Peel has had to leave the meeting.
I mean, we can.
Thank you again for your time. It's my understanding that the developer has been working with Park Central Development, which is not the neighborhood. And hasn't been any public neighborhood engagement about this large scale project on our main commercial street. It would be great to be able to get feedback from the immediate neighbors, especially regarding the parking lot location. I believe that the Preservation Board agenda is the first time anything has been shared publicly about this project. I know developers are not legally required to work with the neighborhood, but there has been such major changes made to the neighborhood in recent years all of which have been developer-led with little community input and oversight. And these properties have been held vacant for several years, so I think taking a month or two to get neighborhood feedback shouldn't be an overwhelming burden. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Meg, anything to add?
We have, yes, before we go on, we do have some additional speakers that I failed to mention that we did receive a number of letters of support and opposition. In support, we got letters from Phil Hulse, Sean Spencer, Kelly Spencer, Kelly Kenter, Betty Shaw, and Sean Baltzel, all of which were passed on to the Preservation Board. And in opposition, David Ackerman, Kami Lewis, Aaron Bish, who wanted a stipulation for neighborhood support, and Dan Doling, president of the Forest Park Southeast Neighborhood Association, who echoed the same concern that he did with Shoto, asking that it go through the Alderwoman's Forest Park Southeast Development Review Committee. Our next,
I noticed Alderwoman Peel on this call. Did you say she had left?
another person who's in the call said that she had left, but she is here. So yes, she's one of several people who wish to speak on this issue.
Yes, if it's possible, I have to go, so to speak first, that would be wonderful.
Go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to thank you, Commissioner, and members of the commission. I'd like to speak on this particular project. First, one question I had was, did it meet the form-based code? It sounded like it didn't meet the form-based code. Is that correct?
It's my understanding that they have not formally submitted for a form-based code review. Is that accurate, Mr. McGee?
That is correct. We have not submitted for the zoning only permit yet, but we have had intense conversation back and forth with the zoning department. Our intent was to submit all at once, but we may be deviating from that path and doing zoning only first.
Okay, thank you. So what I'd like to just present is that I believe it should go through that form-based code. And the second is there is a Forest Park Southeast Development Review Committee, and we have spoken with the developer regarding having the development go through the committee and have it reviewed. There are architects and other professionals on that committee to look at it closer. There have been many residents who have asked about those particular projects or those particular buildings on Manchester and what's happening with it. And citizens have informed me that they wanted to have some input. We have spoken to the developer regarding the dates in which he can present in front of the Development Review Committee and then the neighborhood. And that just has not happened over the past few months. And we have been in communication again, I'd say in the last 2 months, last month, regarding trying to get the site design plan. And the first step, anybody has seen it, is through this meeting here. And so I would like to have the decision for this particular property postponed until the neighborhood can see this project. I know that people have questions on this design. And that it would take a lot more time than just this preservation meeting and hearing. So thank you. I will have to get going because I have another meeting to go to.
Thank you, Alderwoman.
As developer, may I respond?
No. Meg,
Chairman, can I ask a question of the Alderwoman?
she's gone.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Meg,
Yes, our next speaker is Zen Harbison.
Hi, thank you. I'm a resident on Shoto, across from Shoto Park. I just want to second Alderwoman Tina Hill's comment that neighborhood association has not had a lot of time to review this. I am now at this meeting. I'm a neighborhood person, and this is the first time I've seen these drawings or know anything about this. Other than that, the buildings were slated to go. I have one question, quick. How is Tower Grove properties related to this project? That wasn't discussed.
no one is obliged to answer that question, but I note it for the record.
I believe the question may have been pertaining to Groveland. That was one of the questions from the board members, and Mr. Berzotny is with Groveland.
Okay. Well, regardless, I am hoping that you put in consideration for Alderman Peel's comment and that the neighborhood gets to review. Because I and many others that I know have commentary. And going back to slide number 83, I believe it was. Or 85, it looks like 85. I just want to comment that this should not be in consideration or in a slide in this because this was not approved by all the people in the neighborhood when it was built.
If I can comment on that, Mr. Chair, that did not involve a preservation review. So our office had no involvement in the design of this building.
I'm just commenting that it's kind of biased since it's in the slide presentation.
Okay, we're not going to go back and forth.
That's all my commentary, I think.
Thank you, sir. Meg, who's next?
Abdullah.
I have no comment.
Meg, next.
Okay, Aaron Bish.
Yes, thank you. I just the alderperson's request for community review, neighborhood review if possible, and also second Zane's comments about using relatively recently built architecture and designs as design context. Just doesn't seem in spirit with my interpretation of the form-based code. Thank you.
Meg, next.
Those are all the people that we have signed up to speak.
Okay. Commissioners, that concludes testimony on this matter. A motion is now in order. Either.
Chairman, could I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
So, we've heard from a number of neighborhood folks, I think unlike the previous projects where there had been extensive neighborhood deliberation, and I apologize if I missed this, but could the developer sort of walk us through what steps there have been to engage neighborhood? What I'm hearing from the neighborhood sounded more like issues with design than saving these houses, unless I misheard. But could we just get a little bit of some context on that? What engagement has been done?
Yes.
I'm happy to answer. Yeah, hi, Austin Barzanti Grove Properties. So first of all, this is on the commercial strip. There are only 5 residential properties behind where this development is planned. We control all of them. As far as neighborhood, I've gotten support from many businesses on Manchester that want to see increased density in the neighborhood. And as far as engaging with the newly formed development committee, as they mentioned, I reached out to them 2 months ago and they would not put me on the agenda.
Thank you.
Can I ask a follow-up? Why wouldn't they put you on the agenda?
I believe it was because we did not, their lengthy application with full design details, we do not submit that before any agenda. I mentioned to them that we would be happy to share with them the building design and everything at the meeting, but it is a policy of Grove Properties that we do not submit that before a neighborhood meeting.
I have a follow-up question too. Was there any engagement with the folks on Swan where you're installing a parking lot on the surface?
We have a couple of residents that we rent to that are in support of it. So yes, there has been.
But just your tenants?
That's
okay.
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I have a motion.
I can't see who's speaking.
It's Mike Killeen.
Commissioner Killeen, your motion.
I move the Preservation Board defer action on this to allow the applicant to work with the neighborhood and to get their input on his design.
Is there a second?
I'll second it with the condition that it also just be to defer this for 1 month so that it doesn't drag on here.
Thank you. That was going to be my comment.
A motion to postpone to a definite time is amendable. So Is that okay with you, Commissioner Kleen?
I go 2 months to give everybody time to get together. Holidays are coming up.
Is that okay with you, Commissioner Richardson?
Yes.
Okay, the motion on the floor is to postpone consideration of this item for 2 meetings. And this is a discussable motion. Is there any discussion?
Could we just, I mean, I guess, can we make it up to 2 meetings? I mean, if all the parties are ready next month, there's no reason to delay it 2.
Certainly.
Did you say yes, Commissioner Kleen?
I said certainly, yes, sir.
Commissioner Richardson, do you agree?
Certainly, yes.
Okay, the motion on the floor is amended.
I guess
up to 2 months.
I have a question about the motion. So if the developer here continued to reach out to this committee that the alderwoman has over the next 2 months and was unsuccessful, he would then be able to come back to us and say, I tried.
He
Is
can
that-
come back- he can come back in 2 months and he can tell us what happened, and so can the neighborhood.
Yep.
And if it comes back in 2 months, we could extend it further if there, but again, my point is it can't drag on forever. And especially in the environment today with interest rates going up and things like that, it's not fair to a developer.
No, I'd add it's not fair. And frankly, 2 months is a reasonable amount of time. I'd encourage the developer, you got to share some plans with the neighborhood. I mean, whether it's your company policy or not, you're coming to the city asking for something at this point. So I suggest you at least provide them with some of the documentation they're asking for. That doesn't seem unreasonable. And if after 2 months you can't evidence community support or that they're unwilling to meet with you, we'll deal with it then.
Commissioners, there's a motion on the floor that's been made, amended twice and seconded an equal number of times. This needs a majority vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair abstains from this motion. The ayes have it.
Okay. Any questions you have after that meeting? I can pass the mic around and we can just take notes. If you have any questions, drop them on Zoom, drop them in the chat, and we can start here in the room. I'll pass the mic over to Sarah.
This may be a longer conversation for another night, but I think it's a worthwhile point for us to discuss the purpose of neighborhood engagement, having a form-based code and what we're trying to get from it, especially with the confusion about the process right now. I don't think anyone's in agreement in terms of what it should be and what is the designated neighborhood body that should be reviewing these. I think there's quite a bit of, no agreement, probably, I would say, especially, is the point of neighborhood engagement to ease the addition of additional, buildings and people seamlessly into the neighborhood, engaging the neighbors that are surrounding the property, engaging the full neighborhood, like what level of scrutiny is needed if we've agreed on a form-based code that governs the design and look of things. Like, should we be meeting to discuss the design, or should that already be a given that if it meets the form-based code, then it's been approved design-wise, and we're just looking at ways to make sure that we ease any potential tensions from disruptions for neighbors. So I just think it'd be a good conversation to have, listening to both sides from that meeting, just my 2 cents.
I think that's a good point. I think the goal for tonight was to just have Austin here and share about his background and why he's building this project, and to hear him and just to gain that trust, and to your point, easing into the neighborhood. I've never met Austin personally. I don't know how many we have here, but just that opportunity would have been nice. Any other questions? Pass it over to Michael.
Hello, everyone. This is Michael Browning. I just have a few questions that I'd like to ask the developer, so if we could note these down. I want to confirm that the exterior materials would be consistent on all sides. That is, that the backside wouldn't be different. One of the buildings referenced in the presentation has different back materials and it doesn't look great. So that's one question I had. Another question I have is if the developer has a tenant in mind for the commercial space. I know that it took a while to fill the commercial space in the 4400 Manchester building. So wondering if they maybe have an agreement or somebody who's looking to locate there. And then the last question I have is if the developer controls or owns the lot on Swan where the parking will be going. And that's it.
Pass the mic over to Sarah.
Sarah M., not to be confused with other Sarah. I share concerns also with the parking lot on Swan. I think it does set a bad precedent for surface parking lots being created in the neighborhood adjacent to large developments. That could be a prime spot for additional housing. Right now, we have a surplus for rent housing, which while that's great for the medical campus, it tends to lend itself to a high turnover in the neighborhood and prohibits people from buying into the neighborhood who desperately want to become part of the neighborhood fabric and be very engaged in community decision-making such as this. It is very similar to many other projects that have been submitted and been denied. I don't have a list of similarities, but the one that comes to mind is the Arbor on Arco. It's not the same at all, but I think we have to think about not just this as a single development, but the message it's sending to other developers that they can use adjacent properties for surface parking and the repercussions that that would have on adjacent resident buildings, such as high levels of lighting going in at a level which would be potentially into somebody's bedroom for security purposes for the parking area, but it could lead to a very unpleasant situation for the residents. So I would just like to note that as a consideration and then hear more about Sarah Kogan's comment regarding the access from the other lot, because it does look like there's missing information.
This is Cami Lewis Holiday. I think with that little bit of the parking lot that Dan's zooming in on, it doesn't look like that's access. I think that's just turning around space for those adjacent parking spots, and the access would be on the alley. But another concern about the surface parking lot just not being pleasant to live next to, that's also a lot of impervious surface for that stormwater will just leave. And being right next to the Mississippi and the Missouri, that's an important issue in this area. And also, I really here, I hadn't moved to the neighborhood until when the form-based code was being processed, but it's not perfect. No codes are perfect and they need constant evolution. So I think the form-based code is something that we all need to keep evolving, and we shouldn't just depend on it, especially, Lux Living had supposedly met form-based code. So we shouldn't, that's just my thoughts. I'll also be concerned about the thermal envelope of the building and the mechanical systems and what sort of load they're putting on the energy grid.
Sorry, Sarah Mingapora again. I was on the committee that was part of the form-based district process. And I can say I regret it wholeheartedly for what it has turned into. At a certain point, we were unable to provide any additional comments regarding that document. And I completely agree that it is not a great document to hold people accountable. There's a lot of bad information or information that should be revisited due to how it doesn't accurately reflect our neighborhood and what the existing conditions are. It's a carbon copy and not a great one at that of other policies that have been done in other cities. And I know there's a current policy being proposed for Del Mar, and I would like to write a letter to that review committee to reflect that, because it's the same architect and the same process that's been recreated over and over. And we may be just having historically recreating bad decisions. But thanks to the residents who did speak up at the meeting.
I do just want to speak to the Swan parking lot real quick. Oh, sorry, this is Sarah Kay speaking. Oh, yes, and we should ask, there are people online and we've monopolized the entire thing, so. Oh, okay. So it's Sarah Kogan speaking. So in regards to the parking lot on Swan, when I originally saw the plans and the presentation to the preservation board, that parking lot on Swan was, I think, the thing that I found most disappointing, especially since in terms of the ownership past of those two parcels, that would be two parcels combined, is that they were former LRA properties. And in 2015, 2016, there was like a bidding process to kind of, because there were so many developers reaching out to try to get the remaining LRA properties in Forest Park Southeast, they did kind of RFP out to developers to kind of give them away, basically. And I think Austin got control of those two. Now, I think LRA properties in particular should be used for housing, that we shouldn't be in the habit of using LRA properties for parking. But I did go the extra step to look them up in the deed database because I was curious. And only one of the parcels seems to have been transferred over to Austin's ownership. I think one of them is still owned by LRA technically. So I don't think he has full control, although the assessor database seems, I don't know, there is some messy paperwork going on there, but I don't think he has full control, so.
All right, any other questions?
Oh, yeah, this is Kim.
All right.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for going to that preservation board meeting and representing the neighborhood. It was so devastating for all 7 of these huge projects south of Manchester and Adams Grove to have, I think, maybe a week's notice or something, and the development's really taken a toll on people. I had a couple things too. One was the number of units, because in the past, I kept hearing 69, 71. I've gone to meetings where they said, for instance, on Norfolk, 4,400 up near Newstead, that was supposed to be like 9 units, and all of a sudden when they started building it ended up being 18, and it was hard to keep track of things. But I think just to make sure that the number of units we're told in a meeting is actually what's going to be done. And then the other thing too, like I think Cammie talked about the impact this building will have on the grid, also the sewer system. I hope that somehow there's going to be more coordination among like developers, MSD, the city, before they just, start flushing thousands and thousands of toilets on these broken ass sewers of ours. And I'm glad they don't have to take the incentives. And I'm really happy that Alderwoman Peel is starting to ask or, incorporate some kind of benefits for existing residents into this huge, because I was here when the big campaign from WashU was to de-densify the neighborhood, clear it out. Now the whole thing is to densify. So these 30-year, plans that don't incorporate existing people. There could have been some kind of like, negotiations for buyouts. The issue of LRA property being, chucked off to them. It just gave them a much, it would make them more accountable to the neighborhood. They took something, they got land for cheap or free. I can't trace it down. Yeah, I don't know. I thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Kim. I don't need this. I can speak loud enough. Any other questions before we move over into crime and safety report with Officer Walker? No? All right. Officer Walker, if you wanna, I can pass you the mic, like.
Hello, everyone. I'm Officer Walker, your neighborhood liaison officer. Sorry, I came late tonight. I stopped by Tiffany's meeting first today because they had quite a few talkers tonight too. So I figured I'd get in there first and then I can come over here. So I try to switch it up each meeting. But I'm here. If anybody online has any questions for me, can you let me know? If anybody here has any questions for me, let me know. I know Ron sent me an email about someone had questions about some shots fired incidents in the neighborhood. I've seen those. I can't say that there's like somebody in the neighborhood's got something going on. I just think it's kind of like random thing that's going on. As I look through the calls, I can't pinpoint or there's no certain address that's popping up that we should be looking at. So if it's anything out there, if you guys know an address or know our house apartment or something like that we need to be focusing on, if you can send me an email, send me a call and let me know, so we can turn to look into this property to see what's going on with it.
I was just going to point out that there's been a resident who has indicated that there's been patterns over at the corners of Tower Grove and Gibson, in which would be gatherings of cars, and he would flag that and call it in, only to have nobody show up, and then later on that day, shots being fired, and another crime being committed, and just continually repeats, and now he's moving out of the neighborhood because of it. So just wondering if that section of the neighborhood can somehow be addressed, given the patterns that have been going on there. Yeah.
That one with the concrete barriers and blocking the street. I have an issue with those things because blocked streets hinders us coming up and down the streets. I know a lot of people like those barricades, to block their streets to keep the traffic out. But here, if something goes on, EMS, fire department, anybody else has to drive all around the block to get to your location. And if it is some type of crime going on, they're going to see us coming before we see them. I'm not sure how far, it goes back to why they put those out there and what was the reason for it up until now, like why they're still necessary. I think it's a hazard in my opinion, but I just know some people prefer their blocks to be like that. So that could be an issue. Yeah,
specifically Tower Grove and Gibson, both sides of the street are open.
Okay.
And that's what the city's trying to have there.
Yeah, what opposite and right, because city sits on one end and I think on the other opposite end, it is blocked off. I haven't noticed a lot of things. I know it's a vehicle that's been parked out there for a while. At least a few weeks that I've ticketed myself and sent it a CSB. Wasn't a whole lot I can do with some of those vehicles over there like that because all the tires are up, windows are on there. So it's only so much that we can do. After so many tickets have been written on them, somebody is actually paying these tickets, that we can have the collector's office try to get in contact with this person and see what they can do to get them moved. But if you can send me that information or whatever extra information or description of the cars that he has, I can also check those out. And if anybody else has anything for me, just let me know. My office line is up and running now. So you can call, leave me a message. Yes. Oh, thank goodness. Still email is a good way to get to me also. Anytime, like I said, if it's something that, can be taken care of, I'm not in the office, I can pass that information on to my sergeant so that one of the other neighborhood liaison officers can kind of take care of it for me if I'm out. I did send some flyers for CSB because there's a lot of questions and talk going on about what do they do and what they don't do. So I bought those flyers, also sent them to be posted online for the meeting. Ways of things to do when you call 911. And then I did send a spreadsheet just to show you guys some of the crime that's been going on since the last meeting that we had. And it is a couple of shots fired there, and I did put the call notes on what the callers actually said when they called in those shots fired. Again, if you have any questions for me, my number is 314-444-0107. And the email address is N as in Nancy, C as in Charles, Walker at slmpd.org. Anybody?
I think the shots fired are like.
No, not in the middle. We had some during the day. Like I said, some of them stood out. One was like 12 o'clock in the morning, like midnight on here. You did have one at 3:15. And they're just kind of random. No certain time. And like I said, with the addresses, I was trying to see if maybe we can pinpoint like an address where they may be coming from, but we haven't. So I'm thinking about putting a sky cop up there for a couple of weeks or a few days at a time. But that was actually pushed back due to the school shooting, because we put all our resources up there. So I think come next week, we'll be moving things around. So I will be putting a sky cop up along South Newstead and maybe Taylor area. And we may fall back down towards Sarah and Boyle after that. Any other questions for me? So I'm here. I'll give everybody a minute to think about it.
Hi, everyone. This is Michael Browning. I just wanted to remind everyone of the non-emergency number for the police as well. That is, Dan will put it in the chat here. It's 314-231-1212. This morning, I found some items in my alley that had clearly been from a stolen vehicle that were just dumped in the middle of the alley. Called the emergency number within a half hour. An officer showed up, was able to connect the victim with their belongings, and it all went very smoothly. So that number does work for things. And if you do see something that's suspicious or out of place, give it a call, and our officers are pretty quick to respond.
This is Sarah K again. So for what you said emergency, non-emergency number, but if you hear shots fired, I would only call 911 if you, what? Yeah, if it's 911, if it's like, if you know exactly where it is, because the sound can kind of bounce and reverberate around the brick buildings. So like, if you hear it outside your house, call 911. Yeah. Yeah.
Best to call, because when people hear shots fired, somebody will call. And so the more people that call, it kind of gives them a better idea of where the shots are coming from. Because Because someone may call and say, oh, it's from behind my house, so what's your address? Someone else may call and say, oh, it sounds like it's a block away, okay, where are you at? So the more calls they come in and people give a description, once they put it out there, you can kind of pinpoint like, okay, we need to be right over here in this center, because she said it's behind her house, he said it was a block over. So we have an idea of where the calls are coming from. So you just, whatever you hear, wherever you know, feel like you hear the sound is coming from, just let us know, because someone else may be calling and they may be giving a description. And like I said, with that being said, they'll have officers responding out and everybody be kind of like, okay, I'll go this way or I'll go over here, kind of put our folks on work and things coming in. 9 times out of 10, somebody's gonna call and make us say, hey, it's the house next door. So, yeah, just whatever you hear behind me to the south, yeah, just let us know. And like I said, someone else will probably be calling also, and then we give a description and to pinpoint where we need to go.
Is there still an SLPD app?
We have an app, I didn't print that print out, but it's also on our website. We have an app, we have a Twitter page. Majority of the districts have their own district Facebook pages. Without the transfer, without second district and fifth district, ours has updated just, I have to check into that. A lot of that can be found on our main website.
But so there is an app, and like if there are shots fired, then you should just like select it. And that's
Yeah, because it'll get picked up and it'll go like, okay, we're getting some feedback over here. And it'll all go in there, look into it and say, oh, we got any calls and things like that.
Have you guys caught the?
They have made several arrests on that, and they're still looking for some others that are tied into a lot of burglaries throughout the city. So yeah, we have some arrests that were made yesterday. They got a couple of people they're looking for now. Before I got out today, they actually located another vehicle and another suspect.
Any other questions for Officer Walker? No? All right. That kind of concludes our meeting. Next up, we have a daffodil planting event. Definitely at Shoto Park, maybe at Adams Elementary. We have 500 bulbs. That's 1 times 500. That's a lot. That could definitely transform Shoto Park, especially around the corners of the trees, to protect them from the lawnmowers and provide the animals some pollen and some color to our eyes. Dress warm. It might be cold, but it's also St. Louis, so it might be hot. Layers or like an onion. You can take them off when it gets 90 degrees on December 3rd.
Can we pay some kids
Next
to
meeting
help?
is also the Development Review Committee. Austin will be is planned to present at that meeting. At that meeting, they will also be discussing 4210 Manchester through 4214, I believe. That has got secrets project between Sanctuaria and what I believe is a police building. And then they will go into reviewing applications for positions, I believe. And that's just, I think that's just stuff on hold. So the upcoming developments below are nothing certainly upcoming, just projects that Tina has kept her eye on, or projects that have been proposed in the past that could one day resurface. And then they will be meeting at Grace and Mercy at 1211 South Newstead. If you have any questions over today's presentation or the Preservation Board meeting recording, you can send questions to FPSE developmentreview@gmail.com, and they will take those questions into consideration at their meeting. When we meet next, it'll be next year. It'll be 2023, January 17th. We have not finalized our locations yet, but it'll likely be back here at Missouri Foundation for Health. Woo, go team. All right. Thank you, everybody.